Good morning. My name is Anna Gajda. I'm from Poland, and I represent the Krzysztof Penderecki Academy of Music in Krakow and Music School in Wieliczka. In this practice paper, I will examine the relationship that holds between the theoretical and practical components of creating music choreography. I will address the concept of thresholds and stages in the artistic path from the perspective of my own experience. The plan of the presentation is as follows. Firstly, I will cover the major principles that underpin the history of plastic animée. Then, I will briefly explain selected elements of Mieczysław Tomaszewski's concept of integral interpretation of a musical work and the nodal points of an artist's life. After that, I will turn to selected aspects of Rudolf Laban's body movement analysis, which I used in my piece of choreography. To conclude, I will briefly present my findings. Eurythmics is a creative and pedagogical discipline aimed at educating a conscious recipient and performer. The way that it works is perfectly explained by Frank Martin. The composer has said that eurythmics simultaneously engages our principal actions. Attention, first we must hear and record what affects our ear. Intelligence, one must understand, analyze what he has heard. Sensitivity, one must allow musical feelings to penetrate. And finally, body movement, which by its more or less complete adaptation to the music performed, happens to prove that one has been perceptive. Émil Jaques-Dalcroze divides humans into three discrete aspects: body, soul, and mind. He said that the human body is like an orchestra in which various instruments, muscles, nerves, ears, and eyes are directed simultaneously by two conductors, soul and mind. The body is like an instrument with an inbuilt capacity for experiencing art. It's not just, inter alia, a hearing organ, an increase in muscle tension, or a sudden unplanned reaction of the body through involuntary movement to sound, but also an instrument for the expression of emotions and thoughts. Humans, through bodily movement, express and show how they understand music. The center, defined for present purposes as the soul, can be characterized as an agitation, aesthetic fascination, and pre-reflective awareness. So the recipient of art is completely absorbed in the object. He doesn't turn to himself, he doesn't ask questions. It can be compared to a child who reaches for a toy without thinking. The object moves him so unambiguously that he doesn't hesitate in choosing. The mind is the center of conscious analysis and interpretation of what has been experienced and felt. As Maria Lina Juntunen has pointed out, Jacques-Dalcroze wanted the whole human organism to be involved in musical activity. From that point of view, music choreography or movement interpretation of the composition, which is one of the many aspects of eurythmics, can mean a spatial bodily movement, a form of spatial bodily movement that is based on experiencing, feeling, understanding, and expressing the musical work. It is based not only on emotions and feelings, but also on a deep knowledge of the musical score and composer's life. One of the main differences between plastic animée as choreography and plastic animée as a part of rhythmic lessons is the spectator. Our body is like a medium of interpersonal understanding. Music allows the performer and spectator to share the knowledge and emotions which it entails. As Karen Greenhead observes, I believe she is with us because I saw her questions, she observes that over the extended 60-year period in which Émil Jaques-Dalcroze was developing his method, he made different claims about his concept of plastic animée. As early as 1912, Dalcroze speaks of an expressive art of movement in silence or as a dialogue to music. By 1919, considering the ballet concentrates on harmony and grace, Dalcroze states that a conventional dancer adapts music to restricted technique and automatism, while the rhythmist lives the music. In that time, key students of Dalcroze's method, such as Suzanne Perrotet, Mary Wigman, Hania Holm, Rosalia Hladek, left him and would later establish themselves as some of the greatest dancers and choreographers of the era. Suzanne Perrotet explained that, for her, the main problem was the dissonance between expressing herself and musical harmonious structure. In his well-known dissertation of fine art, James William Lee claimed that due in part to the misreading of rhythmic as expressive movement, rather than embodied music, Jacques-Dalcroze was thrust into the midst of the early 20th century public and artistic vogue as both a theorist and critic of a new dance. By 1925, however, he was increasingly finding himself on the receiving end of savage criticism. In a 1932 letter to Gertrude Ingham, Dalcroze informed her that he had decided to give up plastic realizations and to only give pedagogical demonstrations. He wrote, "Too often people confound our method with a system of dance." As Karen Greenhead notes, this had little effect on teachers in England who, even now, still include plastic animée realizations as part of the whole education process of eurythmics. In Poland, we also put emphasis on the movement interpretation of the musical work, and as we could see, in China too. So plastic animée, of course, still alive. In my research, I lean towards music visualizations or music choreography, which means making musical scores visible through movement. As James William Lee has shown, this concept derived from the Dalcroze technique taught at the Dennis Shawn School of Dancing and Related Arts, founded in 1915 by Ruth St. Denis and Ted Shawn in Los Angeles, California. According to Suzanne Shelton, Ruth St. Denis denied that the primary inspiration for her music visualization was Dalcroze's eurythmics. Doris Humphrey, who had studied rhythmics before joining Dennis Shawn, assisted St. Denis as she began to experiment with the term for scientific translation into bodily action of the rhythmic, melodic, and harmonic structure of a musical composition, with no intention in any way to interpret any hidden meaning apprehended by the dancer. Here, I would like to present the analytical method for interpreting musical works created by Polish musicologist Mieczysław Tomaszewski. His concept of integral interpretation of a musical work was first put forward in 2000. For Tomaszewski, the essence of interpretation involves rising to the level of the work. The exploration of the musical work must be initiated by listening intently, fully, absolutely, and without any assumptions, priming our natural sensitivity to sound for readiness, pure immersal in sound. Only after that we can try to think more deeply about the music. The analysis and interpretation of the musical work involves consciously building a critical viewpoint on a musical phenomena and the composer's intended message. The method of integral interpretation assumes the need to study of a musical work's structure and expression. Mieczysław Tomaszewski has demonstrated that art can be interpreted from multiple perspectives: musical, sound, auditory, and symbolic. A musical piece might be analyzed in various ways: as a real process of sound, as something which can be heard, from the perspective of what is considered valuable in the culture, and finally, as a musical score in itself. In these four phases, you can find different qualities and ontological forms of the work. Mieczysław Tomaszewski also created another method, the nodal points of an artist's life. A scholar treated the composer's life as a narrative structure divided into stages. determining the number of the single points may be difficult to compute, but they usually appear in hierarchical and non-random order. An invariant character of the model is that it represents a theoretical construction. In practice, it's nothing more than a conceptual benchmark. Tomaszewski specifies 6 nodal points. Absorbing cultural heritage. This phase refers to the initial period in a young artist's creative life when he or she is filled with the atmosphere of home and school. It's a formative stage that the creator roots in a specific culture. The moment of first fascination and the crystallization of the ideal. The composer is fascinated by a new, different, engaging, and attractive phenomenon. Storm and stress moment. The composer, in a bid for individual artistic expression, suddenly and strongly attempts to break free from heritage, perceived convention, and over-dependence on early musical influences. Significant artistic encounters in mature life. The artist meets different creators or their works, and as a result, catches their winds in his sails. The moment of danger to existence, according to Tomaszewski, such moments originate from health crisis and can shake the artist's faith in his existence, invoking fears of lost material opportunities, creative impotence, and despair in one's choices. The moment of loneliness and liberation, this late career moment involves the creation of works of a testamentary character. It's a period in which the artist is free to form newly and differently. Viewing an artistic career from its nodal points helps the interpreter form a deeper understanding of the character, aim, and meaning of the creative process as it evolves in relationship to both the life and the art. The model has an infinite number of applications. These two methods created by Mieczysław Tomaszewski informed my theoretical studies of Sacher variation for solo cello composed by Witold Lutosławski, wanting to create a musical choreography in which the goal was to embody various aspects of the musical works in movement. I had to re-examine the composer's score and try to reread his intentions, interpreting it again to fit the specific performance which I had chosen. My approach was heavily influenced by a specific cello interpretation of Lutosławski's piece by Dominik Połoński. So I placed special emphasis on the unique character of his rendition, stressing those aspects of his performance that touched me the most. Sacher variation was commissioned by the Russian cellist and conductor Mstisław Rostropowicz in honor of the 70th birthday of Paul Sacher, who made great contributions to the music of the 20th century as conductor, patron, and impresario. Sacher variation, which derives its title from Sacher's last name, corresponds to the note names in European languages forming the Sacher hexachord. Here you can see the first hexachord, how it looks in the score, and how I translate it to the movement. We can find 6 repetitions of the Sacher hexachord. Each repetition repeats 3 times, with a slight difference in melody or rhythm, but a huge differences in character. Take, for example, the first Sacher hexachord with 2nd and 3rd repetition. the pitch material of the work is divided into two sections. Thread 1, the 6 pitches of the Sacred hexachord, which we knew already, and thread 2, all the pitches of the chromatic scale except those on the Sacred hexachord. The pitch material of thread 2 is placed between the phases of thread 1. It uses the microtonal technique, pastel timbre, among others. My proposition was to use non-defining gestures of my fingers and fast turns for microtonal, and I directed the movement to the ground in pastel timbre. While creating the musical choreography for the piece, I faced many problems. The main problem was finding a movement which would be suitable both for the artistic aesthetic impression which I was to experience and the musical analysis which I had subsequently carried out. Sometimes I felt the music, but when I watched the recording of the choreographed piece, I didn't see the music in the movement. When I was looking for a particular quality of movement, I turned to Rudolf Laban's concept of body movement as defined by weight, space, energy, and time. So, for example, in Sacred hexachord, I used square directions, straight positions, pushing and dabbing movements for average or high-level motions. For the material of thread 2, I chose undefined directions, non-defining gestures of my fingers, released positions, twisting and floating movements for average or low-level motions. To briefly conclude my presentation, the stage dimension of Émil Jaques-Dalcroze's method is based on the relationship between a musical piece in theory and choreography in practice. One of the overarching aims of Jacques-Dalcroze's concept is to prepare the recipient for a deeper perception of a piece through auditory-visual experience. The seeming intention of the author of the stage plastic animée is the spatial embodiment of a musical score. Ideally, this should give the impression of visible music. Émil Jaques-Dalcroze said that eurythmics is aimed at expressing bodily movements through embracing the musical piece. He also claimed that using movement interpretation of the musical works helps to acquire more of a deeply understanding towards music and also unite and satiate art with art. The concept of integral interpretation of a musical work and the nodal points of an artist's life, created by Czesław Tomaszewski, provides a deeper understanding of the different aspects of a musical work. This consciously theoretical method will enable you to make a decision about which aspect of a musical piece you want to emphasize in your choreography and why. Rudolf Laban's efforts will allow you to better illustrate the synergy of theory and practice. I would like to thank you very much for your attention.